Good morning, boys and girls, and welcome to Friday's math lesson. So this week we've been talking about graphing and different types of graph. But before we get started, let's go over our I can statement. So our I can statement is I can organize, represent, and interpret data with up to 3 categories. So we've been talking about bar graphs, tally charts, pictographs, what it means when it's a title, a label, a key, all of those pieces. But before we get started with our graphing lesson, let's go ahead and do a number talk. So get out your math notebook and a pencil, and then you can join me while we go over ways to count the following objects. So this is our number talk. Looking at these tally marks, I felt like it was befitting to use tally marks since we've been talking about them this week. Looking at these tally marks, what are some different ways you can count these tally marks? What are some different ways you can count the tally marks? So remember, whenever we're counting, we can pause the video if you need to, and then you hold up your hand to your chest or your heart, and you pop out a finger whenever you think of ways to count. So that's what I'm going to do on the side so you can look at these tally marks and I'm not blocking your view. All right, if you think of more ways, you can always pause this video and write those ways down. If you think of different ways, that is even better. So one way I thought of to count these tally marks is to count by ones. Okay, so I can count by ones. So I want you to count by ones with me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I got 10 by counting by ones. What is another way you could count these tally marks? Another way I thought of is I know by looking at these tallies that this group right here is a group of 5, because I know that when I see the 4 lines going down and the diagonal line through it, that's a group of 5. Well, this is the same thing, so it's also a group of 5. So I can count by 5s. Let's count by 5s together. Ready? 5, 10. So I got 10 again. So both of these are great ways to count these tally marks to figure out how many there are. Remember, if you think of a different way, that is perfect. I'm glad that you can think of other ways than what I can think of. Hopping into graphing. So we're talking about graphing. Before we go ahead and get started with today's lesson, I would like to go over a few of our vocabulary words that we've talked about this week. So, who remembers what a graph is? Remember, a graph is a way to organize and represent data, right? So you're using different categories and you can represent data. You can also use a graph to interpret data. What is the title of a graph? The title of the graph, remember, it tells you what the graph is showing. So what is the graph showing? What's a label? A label is the category. So things we've talked about before, or the favorite fruits people liked, or the favorite lunch, or the favorite field trip, or things of that nature. The favorite holiday, the favorite season. So those are the labels. It would be the number of votes as well as the label of the season. So both of those can be labels. What is a graph key? This we use for picture graphs, remember? So like, for example, 1 smiley face equals 1 student, right? 1 student vote. So the key would be, this would be at the bottom of the pictograph. Sorry, that's a little crooked. But so that's the key. It shows you what in the pictograph, what it means. So what does one smiley face equal? Remember in Annie and Moby's video from Brain Pop, it said that sometimes this could be worth 2, right? Or more, or 10. So you have to make sure you look at the key to figure out how many it's worth. Okay, next piece. I want to go ahead and I want to talk about the different types of graphs. So a bar graph. Who remembers what a bar graph is? Remember, a bar graph looks like this. It shows that data from whatever you collected in bars, right? So it's pretty easy to see. You could use your blank hundreds chart to do an example of a bar graph. So that's a bar graph. Who remembers what a tally chart is? Remember, a tally chart is a great way to count votes, right? So say people voted on their favorite color. It's a great way to organize and interpret data by counting. It's really simple to count with tally marks. What about a pictograph? So who remembers what a pictograph is? Remember, a pictograph is a way to show data by using pictures. So remember, you could use smiley faces, you could use the actual, if these people voted on shapes, you could use the actual shapes that people used. So that's a pictograph. Now, this one that I want to talk about is something that we haven't quite mentioned before, but it means it's a survey. So a survey is just who's voting on something. So if you asked how many kids were surveyed in the graph, it's how many kids total voted. So I want to go over that before we begin. So what is your favorite type of milk? This is exactly what I'm going to do. Okay. So I'm going to do the different types of milk. I'm going to do white, chocolate, and then I'm going to do strawberry. Okay. Okay. And I'm going to say one circle equals one student vote. Okay. And this is favorite milk. Okay, I want to make sure I have a title. But so if I voted from a group of 10 students or more or whatever, so kind of give it away. Let's do a different number. So if I have white students, the students that chose white milk, the students that chose chocolate milk, just really change those dots at the top to make them more uniform so they match the other dots. Yep, there we go. Okay. Okay. So if I wanted to know how many students were surveyed in this graph, I'm going to look at my key. So one circle equals one student. So to figure out how many students were surveyed, how many students voted in the entire graph, you're going to count all of these. So these are all of the votes. So let's count them together. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So I could say that in this chart, okay, 12 students were surveyed. Because that's how many students total voted in this graph. So that is a survey. That's how you figured out how many were surveyed. Okay. We're going to skip that one, actually. So what we're going to do is we're going to review, okay, a bar graph, and then I'm going to go over your seesaw assignment. So looking at this bar graph, it is showing different types of shapes, right? It has a label here with the numbers, and it has the shapes on the bottom. You have a triangle, an oval, a rectangle, and a pentagon, okay? So there is a title at the top of this, but I just have the chart blown up bigger. So it was, I believe the title was favorite shape. So that's what you could have written at the top. Oop, that's wrong. Oh, Mrs. Cooper, struggling. Favorite shape. There we go. All right. Favorite shape. Okay, so if I was doing my favorite shape, I'm going to count the triangles first. All right. So I have 1, 2, 3 triangles. So remember, on a bar graph, you shade in or color up until that number. So 1, 2, and then this was 3. Okay. So 3 triangles. Now let's go ahead and let's count the ovals. 1, 2. So I only have 2 ovals. So I'm going to color in 2 bars for my bar graph. Okay. Then let's go ahead and count rectangles. So 1, 2, 3, 4 rectangles. 2, 3, 4. Now we're going to count our pentagons. 1, 2. So I'm only going to draw in 2. Now remember, this is a great way to interpret data. So looking at this bar graph, could you tell me which shape had the most votes? That's right. A rectangle had the most votes because it had 4 votes. Which shape had the least votes? This one's kind of a trick question. Which one had the least votes? Both oval and a pentagon. So I could have asked which 2 have the same amount of votes, and that would have been an oval and a pentagon because they both had 2. Now I want to know how many more votes did a rectangle have than an oval. Now remember, for this one, what you're looking at here is you're looking at the top of where a rectangle reached, right? And then you're looking at the top of where the oval reached. Well, I want to know how many more this rectangle has than this oval. Well, there's 2 spaces where rectangle has votes and oval doesn't. So you would count these spaces where oval doesn't have any votes. So the rectangle has 2 more votes than the oval does. Okay. Now, I would like to go over your seesaw lesson. So for your seesaw activity, just like in weeks past, there is a megaphone, okay? Or in days past, there's megaphone. You click on that megaphone, it gives you specific directions. It reads through everything on this activity. So I want you to look at, these are your different types of wild and wacky weather. So these are all the wild and wacky weather that occurred for the month, okay? And it wants you to tally up how many were for each specific one, okay? So how many were for each specific type of wild and wacky weather? So I actually want to go ahead and I want to do one with you. So let's go ahead and do the first one, sunny. We're going to tally up the number of suns and then you're going to write the number, okay? So 1 tally, 2, 2 tallies, 3 tallies, 4 tallies, 5, remember, draw a line through, 5 tallies, 6 tallies, 7 tallies, 8 tallies. Okay, so I know this is 5 plus 3, right? So that's going to be 8. The number is 8. You'll do the same thing for each other type of weather, rain, snow, windy, and tornado. Then what you're going to do is you're going to answer these questions, okay? Be careful. When it asks which weather, you're telling me the label, the weather, sunny, rainy, snow, windy, or tornado. When it's asking how many, you're telling me a number. So just be careful of that. This right here gives you specific directions.
Hello, boys and girls, and welcome to your wild and wacky weather graphing activity. So for this activity, you're going to take those pictures of the wild and wacky weather, and you're going to count them up. Tally them in the chart below, and then put the number. Once you finish that, you can go on and answer the following questions. Number 1, which weather was seen the most this month?
So remember, if you need to, look here. You can pause the video, answer this question. Which weather was seen the most this month? Pause the video. It pauses it exactly where you stopped. It doesn't make you go back to the beginning. So pause it, answer that question, then hit play.
Looking for the greatest number, but you want to tell me which weather feature is associated with that number. So if the largest number was sunny, then you're going to write sunny for number 1. Number 2, which weather was seen the least this month? So again, you're going to look at the number that's the lowest, but you're actually going to look at which number is the lowest. So if the lowest number was tornadoes, you're going to write tornado on that line. Number 3.
And then you're going to go ahead and go through the entire chart, but you could pause it at any point. Also, if you need to, you could always come back, rewatch this lesson to go back over how to solve this graph, how to go through graphing. If you needed to, if you need a review on tallies, I would check out Tuesday's math lesson, because Tuesday's math lesson did a great job about going over tallies. So if you need to, always come back, rewatch this lesson. I can't wait to see what you do in your Seesaw activity. I'm super excited. I'm super proud of all of you. That includes you, Mrs. Slocky's class. And I hope you all have a wonderful day and a wonderful weekend. Thanks so much for joining me. Bye.